once you have a bad experience in the workplace, you really carry that with you going forward. And it's trauma. It's something that, you're never going to really be without, I guess.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Erica Domingo, back with another episode of the Workplace Antidote, where we are talking to and highlighting people and companies who are getting it right or doing their best to get it right in the workplace. Those who are striving to rid the workplace of toxicity and ensuring that the workplaces are not just free from discrimination, but also reflective of the diversity that we see in the world. Today, I am so happy to have my guest, Dan Bryan, Digital Marketing Director at Riddle Brantley in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and founder and CEO of Marketing for Justice. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you so much for having me, Erica. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. You are connected with our marketing manager, Alex Schwartz. I know he's been on your podcast, and you guys are kind of cross-collaborating. So it's a pleasure to have you be here on this platform for the Workplace Antidote. Probably the first thing the guests who are watching are going to wonder is, why is she talking to a white man about discrimination? So, can you tell us a little bit, is that something that you have ever experienced in a workplace?
Yeah, totally. It is an interesting question. And obviously, from first appearances, I'm sure people are wondering why the hell I'm on here. But yeah, I am a white man. I was raised in a very waspy background, growing up in Michigan, but I am gay. And I've been, open about that and out since, sometime in high school or just after high school rather. But yeah, I've experienced my own fair share of workplace discrimination and working within a toxic work environment, and one that's outwardly hostile to people with backgrounds and experiences like mine. And so unfortunately, I like to think that I know a thing or two about, workplace discrimination and that awful world. Yeah,
unfortunately, it's not an area that people want to know about, but if you've been through it, and too many people have, I always say, I wish I didn't have a job. I wish this wasn't happening in people's workplaces. But, did that experience you had, and you said that was in Michigan?
Yeah.
Did that experience you had affect your career trajectory or your profession in any way?
Totally. I think that it would have affected my career trajectory and my professional development a lot more if I weren't the kind of person to just quit. And I would have been stuck in that situation, quite honestly, for a lot longer if I hadn't had the support of the friends and family that I did around me who encouraged me to just get out. I probably would have not respected myself quite so much had I not had those folks backing me. So it didn't necessarily affect my career trajectory or my professional development as much as it otherwise could have. But what it did do is, it certainly affected my mental health, my well-being, my own self-worth, I think, at the time. And so it was extremely important that I got out of that situation. But the other thing that it did was it also, I suppose everything's a blessing and a curse. It also gave me the drive, I think, to try and do better and create a better environment, a more inclusive environment, a more affirming environment for the folks that, I work with day to day, and have worked with since. So in that sense, I suppose in a really messed up sort of way, it was a positive experience.
That's good. That's good that you can take that away from it. After you went through that experience, did you have any trepidations about going on to another workplace or starting your next position?
Yeah, I had a lot of apprehension about, re-entering the workplace after that had happened. I was fortunate enough to work with a really good friend of mine for about 5 years after that, and she's about as inclusive as they come, and affirming. And so I had just, I was basically in paradise for, 5 years after that. And so I had a nice kind of re-entry, I guess, to the workforce. But certainly when we moved to North Carolina and I was looking for another job, North Carolina is not, quite frankly, the most progressive of states. I don't know what kind of workplace protections, are even in effect here. But I was definitely apprehensive about re-entering the quote unquote traditional workplace and finding a place that would be affirming and accepting and, respectful of, my background and who I am. So that was certainly something that crossed my mind. And I think, once you have a bad experience in the workplace, you really carry that with you going forward. And it's trauma. It's something that, you're never going to really be without, I guess.
Yeah. And so having had that experience in Michigan, when you were looking in North Carolina for a position, was, workplace culture, inclusivity, something that was a factor in your decision and where you landed?
Totally. And I don't spend a ton of time talking about my personal life when I'm in a job interview, for instance. I don't think it necessarily is appropriate, and I don't think it should matter. That's kind of what we're talking about here. It shouldn't matter. But I do take an opportunity, when I can, when I'm, either in a job interview or I'm weighing a potential business opportunity or a partnership with someone else. I try to work in, at least some kind of reference to the fact that, no, I am not married to a woman. That's not who I am. That's not my experience. I may not fit in the box that you think I do. And I try to work that in just to kind of gauge someone's initial reaction and see, how that goes over. Because, obviously having had the experience that I did, I'm not interested in working, in a place where I have to hide who I am or pretend to be something that I'm not. And so, yeah, like when I was looking for a job in North Carolina here this last time around, I did drop a couple references just to kind of see how they went over. Unfortunately, they went just fine. And, that kind of gave me a little bit more confidence, but I was definitely apprehensive at first. It was kind of scary.
Yeah. Now, in your position as a digital marketing manager and CEO of your own Marketing for Justice, how does that experience you had in Michigan and your experience as a gay man play into your leadership style or the workplace that you try to create?
Yeah, great question. So I, in my position right now, in the firm where I work, my 9 to 5, I'm not involved in most of the hiring decisions, and I don't have a large team myself. So I'm not really involved in it from that standpoint. But what I really do try to do is create an environment for others where they feel comfortable. They feel like, they can come to me and, talk to me about, a personal experience outside of work that, and know that they're going to be respected and affirmed. And there's no judgment there. There's nothing. I mean, there's a reason why, on my website, for my side business, Marketing for Justice, marketingforjustice.com. There's a reason why, and I'm being quite honest. One of the absolute first things that I did when I developed that website was stick a very clear disclaimer at the very bottom that this is a no judgment zone. We don't discriminate on the basis of race, sex, gender identity, expression, military status, right. Anything. I really want to be intentional in creating an environment where people feel welcome. And like I said, I really try to go out of my way to create a judgment-free zone. I don't spend a lot of time, like I think I shared earlier, I don't spend a lot of time talking about, my personal life at work, just because I don't think that's necessarily the place. But when I do, I don't hold back in terms of, sharing who I am and, that I'm married to a man. And, I try to create an environment, or I try to model for others that there should be no shame in talking about who you are at work and, living just as you are, however you are.
Yeah. Now, in your perspective, you work in the legal community, but also in a subset of the marketing community. What are you seeing in terms of diversity within legal marketing? And do you think it's, reflective of the communities in which we live, or there's room for improvement?
Yeah, I certainly think that it's not reflective of the communities in which we live yet. I think that there has been a lot of progress made in the last several years, or maybe over the last decade. And I also think that marketing, we're fortunate, Alex and I, we're fortunate to work in an industry where it is a little bit more progressive. And I think, you and I were talking previously about how, there are more creative people maybe that are drawn to marketing. And so, self-expression is a real core value. And so I think that it is a little bit ahead of the curve in that sense. And I appreciate that. Working in the broader legal industry, however, you know better than anyone. I mean, the legal profession has been dominated for so long by old white men, quite frankly. And so I think there's a lot that needs to be done. And there's a lot that anyone working in close proximity to that industry can do to try and, create a better, more inclusive environment that looks like the people that we serve. In personal injury law, the world that I work in, and you in employment law, your client could be anyone. It could be anyone with a job. It could be anyone who's been in an accident. And so it's really important, I think, to make, everyone feel comfortable, coming into the office or, hopping on video chat or talking on the phone that, I'm dealing with someone that values who I am as a person. And we can all do a better job, I think, of striving to be more inclusive than we are right now.
That's great. And I think, your workplace, you're working towards that. I know we're doing that here too at Grungo, Colarulo. And it's so nice to talk to somebody else with, shared values. If you were to give advice to, another gay person trying to make their way in whatever their chosen field is, what would you tell them?
It's tough because there's so many things that I would say, but I think at the end of the day, the most important thing that I could impart to anyone, especially someone who's young and is just entering the workforce and is maybe a little bit unsure of, themselves even and what they want to do with their life. Do not ever apologize for who you are. Don't put yourself in a situation where you feel like you have to hide. Really just live out who you are and be authentic and be honest and open. And if, for whatever reason you're not accepted or your experience is not affirmed or someone, maybe belittles, who you are just based on your skin or your orientation or your gender identity, it's not the place for you. And I can assure you, you will find something better. It may take a little bit of time. It may take, a little bit of sweat, and you may, have some tears along the way, but there's a better opportunity for you out there. I assure you, you do not have to put up with someone disrespecting you for who you are.
That's awesome. That's great advice. And when we were talking before, you said it's kind of simple, kind of a basic concept, right? We teach this to our kids, but I don't think you can hear it enough, because I think there are lots of us out there, myself included, who really didn't, want to be who you were or feel comfortable being exactly who you are. I don't want to work at a place where I can't be myself. And, especially when you're talking about an immutable characteristic, such as your race, your gender identity, whatever it is, it's so important to remind people, just be who you are and you will find your tribe. Whatever it is, wherever it is, you will end up at the place that accepts you and appreciates you for who you are and recognizes the value in whoever you are. And I love that.
Absolutely.
Dan, thank you so much. We love what you're doing at Marketing for Justice. And thank you for sharing your story with us. It's just so important for people to hear that there is a place for everyone, and your workplace you don't have to suffer from discrimination in the workplace.
Thank you so much for having me, Erica. I love what you're doing. And I wish secretly that there were some way we could export some of New Jersey's job protections to North Carolina. That would be lovely, but keep up the good fight. I love what you're doing. Thanks,
Dan. Again, marketingforjustice.com. And hopefully we'll see you around soon. And thanks to everyone who stuck with us for this episode of The Workplace Antidote.
Don't forget to like and follow.
Don't forget to like and follow. I'll do that.